An underrated tool for your ambitious life is your bedtime routine. I've been neglecting mine for far too long, so I've created an evidence-based bedtime routine, and today I want to share that with you. So the most effective evidence-based method for chronic insomnia is something called CBT-I, which stands for Cognitive Behavior Therapy for Insomnia. It's endorsed by major medical organizations, and it's the go-to therapy before medication. And it's not just your typical sleep hygiene. It's actually a tool that helps you retrain your body and mind how to sleep again. So here I wanted to share how I've built a bedtime routine centered around movement, a wind down ritual, consistent sleep timings, CBT-I strategies that I've personally used, and finally the sleep restriction protocol. So without further ado, let's dive into how to build a bedtime routine to keep living your ambitious life. So the first key to success is movement. Research shows that exercise helps people to fall asleep faster, improve sleep efficiency, and improve overall sleep quality. I personally do a morning workout before I go to work. And this is because I rarely have any motivation to do movement after I come back. However, if you do prefer doing evening workouts, try to time it around 3 to 4 hours before your actual bedtime. Because if you do higher intensity workouts, this can interfere with your ability to fall asleep. On days when I'm not working, I do like to do an evening stretching routine, which only takes about 10 minutes. And this is the first step to help my body begin to relax before bedtime. There's even research in clinical populations that show that yoga routines improve sleep-related outcomes. For example, people feel more awake in the mornings and reduce their reliance upon sleep medications. So after my stretching, I will pour myself a nice hot cup of chamomile tea. And nowadays there are numerous herbs and supplements that are marketed for restful sleep and relaxation. These are things like lavender, valerian root, chamomile, lemon balm. However, the quality of evidence that actually supports this is variable and majority are inconclusive. So neither of these are actually the first line treatments for insomnia. However, most of these can be taken without harm, which is why a lot of people do. But as always, before starting any new supplement or herb, consult with your doctor to make sure it's safe. And me personally, I actually don't feel any different or any more sleepier when I drink chamomile tea. And trust me, I have tested myself and drank chamomile tea in the mornings and I don't feel any different. But the important part of this ritual is that I do it every single day in the evenings. And it helps to signal my brain that it is time to relax. It is bedtime. And so my main takeaway point here is that the rituals you do every single day leading up to bedtime do matter. And try to do them every single day to ingrain it into your brain. So in addition to these important rituals, probably the most important behavior change is to actually sleep and wake up at the same time each and every day. And this one is the hardest for me to do because I get a lot of my best ideas right as I fall asleep, which tends to excite me, and therefore I am up until 1 or 2 in the morning. However, regardless of what time I finally fall asleep, I do ensure that I wake up at the same time every day. And this does make me sleepier on days when I do fall asleep at 2 in the morning. And therefore, I'm more encouraged to actually fall asleep earlier at my said bedtime the night after. So regular sleep and wake times are the backbone of CBT-I therapy. And if your wake times swing wildly, for example, you're doing 6 a.m. on the weekdays and on weekends you sleep until noon, then your body can't predict sleep. And if your body can't predict sleep, then you can't get restorative sleep, which is the key to achieving all the amazing things that you're doing in your life. So my advice is to pick a wake time that you can do most days. And even if your bedtime does vary, try to keep your wake up time within that same hour. The key to a busy life relies upon consistent energy, hunger cues, mood stability, and focus. And this all stems from a regular sleep cycle. Okay, so now let's get into CBT-I relaxation techniques. And this forms the meat and potatoes of treatment for chronic insomnia. And this is something that I will incorporate after I finish my dinner and I'm going on my post-dinner walk, or even after while I'm reading a book. And the first one is called progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR. And this is where you tense your muscle groups briefly and then slowly relax them, often starting from your feet all the way up to your head. And this technique has been around for a long time. It was created back in the 1930s. In one randomized controlled trial, a group of people with anxiety and insomnia reported improvements in these symptoms after adopting the PMR technique every single night. And I'll link a YouTube video right here where you can follow in real time a PMR session before you sleep. The second technique is called paced breathing, and this is something that I will do while I'm on my post-dinner walk. And this technique is centered around focusing on your breathing. One common pattern used is to breathe in for 3 seconds and to breathe out for 7 seconds. And continue doing this for about 20 minutes. Research has shown that people who've adopted this breathing pattern before sleep have reported falling asleep faster, fewer awakening times, and improved sleep efficiency. And the third option is guided imagery, and this technique actually surprised me when I stumbled upon it, but it does work. So all it is envisioning your ideal bedtime routine. For example, envision what it's like to put on your pajamas, wear something comfortable, get out of your tight work clothes. Imagine yourself lighting a candle or drawing a luxurious bubble bath, or like me, drinking your bedtime tea. And this actually helped a lot before I constructed my bedtime routine because it helped me to visualize the things that I actually want to do every single day. And research does support that people who have adopted the guided imagery technique reported improved sleep times. And the last technique is not as much as a relaxation technique for your body, but more for your mind. And that is using gratitude and spirituality. So adopting gratitude, mindfulness, compassion, forgiveness play a huge role in stress relief, which is often a major cause for insomnia. So before going to bed each night, I will personally reflect on 3 things that I am grateful for that day. So the final key to your bedtime routine happens when you're actually in bed, because what you're actually doing in bed determines what your brain thinks the bed is for. So CBT-I is built on the fact that most people with insomnia train their brain to associate their bed with frustration, anxiety, work, scrolling on social media, and planning your day for tomorrow. So essentially, your bedtime becomes an extended office hour. And this is where the principle of stimulus control comes into play. So stimulus control is the idea that you are only using your bed for sleep. So there are 3 core principles. The first is only go to bed when you feel sleepy. Number 2, only use your bed for sleep, not for scrolling TikTok, not for sending an extra email. And finally, if you can't fall asleep within 20 to 30 minutes, then get yourself out of bed, go to actually a different room, and do something like read a book, any kind of light, stimulating activity until you feel sleepy again. Then only return back to your bed. And trust me, this is super annoying at first, but it retrains your brain to only associate your bed with sleep, which greatly improves your sleep efficiency. A method you can use to incorporate stimulus control into better sleep times is called sleep restriction. And this therapy is actually one of the most effective non-drug therapies for chronic insomnia. So the idea behind it is that if you're in bed for a total 9 hours, but you only spend 5 of those hours actually asleep, this trains your brain into thinking that your bed is mostly for being awake. So sleep restriction tightens that window, so you're forced to only be in bed when you're asleep. A common way to use this technique is to keep a sleep journal every day for 2 weeks and keep track of what times you're going to bed, waking up, and more importantly, how much time you're actually asleep. And this is usually an estimate because no one knows the exact time they fall asleep. And based off of the actual amount of hours you are asleep, you adjust your sleep time and wake time to match that window. to minimize the amount of hours you lie awake in bed. And if you guys are interested in this technique, then I'll link a video here that goes more in depth into the actual steps. So in a nutshell, if you want to create an effective bedtime routine, focus on incorporating movement every single day, sleep at a regular bedtime and wake time, create bedtime rituals that you do every single day, and use CBT-I techniques to help relax your body, your mind, and more importantly, retrain your brain to only associate your bed with sleep. And I think the most important takeaway is that living an ambitious and busy life doesn't come from squeezing the most out of every single day. It actually comes from a consistent sleep cycle, which for me has been a hard pill for me to swallow after working at 200 miles per hour for the past 10 years. But I learned the hard way, I got burnt out, and having a regular sleep cycle has transformed the way I show up for work, my family, and most importantly, myself. And if you do struggle with insomnia consistently, I do recommend trying out any of these CBT-I techniques. And more importantly, to be patient with it, because it's not going to transform your sleep cycle in just one session. It's often going to take several days to weeks to months to see an effect. So go out there and romanticize your bedtime routine, because your nervous system is your most important asset. So if you guys like that video, please hit the like and subscribe button. I put out new videos every week. And if you want more, I do have a weekly free email newsletter on health and wellness. But otherwise, I hope y'all have a happy, peaceful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next week.